uh, looked at my list of questions for this week and I didn't get any. And just to let everybody know, it's always better if you can send me questions ahead of time, then I can prepare them, but we'll do the best we can ad hoc. So anybody that wants to go first, I think Elizabeth is on the line. Just before we get started, Elizabeth, did you have anything that came to you that I didn't see yet as far as questions?
No, nothing on my end. I Only thing I really got was just the VLE issue, but no specific questions so far.
Okay, yeah, I saw the message from Jason. I guess it was late yesterday that they were making a temporary fix to the VLE for the password issue that should be available on Monday. And warning everybody, all the students to back up their stuff if they can. And because it's potentially going to, if they haven't put stuff in persistent storage, they may lose some data. But apparently there was some sort of issue. I don't know if you know anything more about it than I do.
I haven't heard anything specifically. I just know yesterday I was still getting emails from a couple students, and I haven't heard back from one of the students if the help desk was able, like thinking, has been able to figure anything out yet.
Yeah, I saw a couple students had responded that they were all set and it was fixed, but then I saw the message from Jason about the update they were going to make to the VLE.
Okay, so hopefully that'll fix everything or allow students to get back in.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Like I said, I just wanted to check in with you just to make sure there wasn't any early questions before we got started this morning. So anybody else can, I think, Matt, you were here first, so I'll throw it out to you if you have a question that you want to ask, or I noticed you were online before anyone else this morning.
Thank you. I'm. It's good to be here. Have to admit, that I'm writing. I'm writing an adventure game for another class that has occupied so much of my time. It's this week and the last week that it's been pretty difficult to stay on top of the workload. But I'm just here for insight into this week's um,
Got it.
program with the socket programming and the packet analysis. Really, I'm just here to gain insight.
Okay, cool. Yeah, how many, I think folks can raise their hand. How many folks are here? Because I don't know all of the names. I recognize several of them. It looks like most of the folks that I see here are from 473. And if you are, can raise your hand and let me know. I think everybody here is from 473 though. I think if anybody's here from 312 or 474, and just let me know so I know what I'm talking about. But 473, we're working on a Python sniffer using some information that was directly. Okay, so we've got one from 312, 473. Okay, so it looks like we have one 312 student. And are you in the 312 student? I'm going to butcher your name, so I'm not even going to say it. Are you in 7 week 1 or are you just starting 7 week 2? I think you're in 7 week 1, right?
So, yes, I was in 7 week 1. I had a question about my script because it didn't make sense why it worked in one situation and it wasn't working with another situation.
Okay. So yeah, fire your question. What was what issue were you having?
So I sent you a script, I don't know if you remember, and it had a for loop and it wouldn't work with the .raw file, but that loop worked with a CSV file. So I was confused as to why it worked with one and not the other.
Yeah, like I said, the only I did see that, and I think I did respond at least once or twice on that one. So basically the .raw file is really large. And so the processing within the VLE, I've seen it take as much as 30 minutes, but you said that you had gone longer than that. because when it's trying to actually do that regular expression substitution of that entire file, it takes a long time because it's 125 megabyte file and it's going in and basically applying that regular expression to that entire file. And that just takes up a lot of resources. And I've seen it run, at least in my VLE, up to like 30 minutes, but it sounded like you went farther than that. As far as the loop goes, the hint that I was giving you there is, let me take this out of context of the assignment. If I have a list, right? And let's say I just create my list. So if I have a list that has a bunch of strings in it, and I want to determine how many times a particular string occurs, since this is a list, I can say my list.count, right? And I can say ABC, and it comes back and tells me 3. So when you have that large list of words that came back from the assignment, right? You don't loop through the list. The count method can be applied to the entire list and it'll come back and give you your answer. So basically just the point here is that, like with strings, if I had message equals the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Since the atomic element of a string are the actual individual characters, when I say message.count, and I said, let's say the letter E, it's going to come back and tell me there were 4 letter E's. Just like with a list, if I'm looking for the element, the atomic element of a list are the individual items in the list. So the count will tally those for you. On the other hand, if I said my message.count, message.count, parentheses, dog, I can still do that because it'll find the string dog within this. If I don't have to do it on an individual character, I can still say things, but it's only going to come back and tell me 1 because it's there. But if I said message dot count it comes back 2 because there's 2 instances of the in message. But when you're doing it for the list, it's going to basically count the number of times that particular entry, that element of the list exists. So in the case of the assignment you are working on, you do not need to have a loop in order to be able to do that. You can actually just address the things that you're searching for within the list, which is really a powerful feature. So the whole point of that script was to basically get all of the words that were in the .raw file. Now, I can't answer the question why the raw file wasn't processing for you within the VLE. It should have. But because I did it myself right after I had heard from you to make sure that it was working, and it did. So I'm a little baffled about that, about why it was either taking too long or it never finished. And that's kind of why I asked you whether or not where it was stalling within that script by stepping through it. And you kind of indicated it was at that regular expression statement where it was doing the substitution. And so that should eventually complete. I'm not sure why it wasn't for you. I can't answer that. But I do know that does in fact work within the VLE. So I'm probably giving you more information than you were asking.
Yes, it makes sense. Yes, I took out the for loop, so it eventually worked. But even without the for loop, it also took longer than 20 minutes. But it eventually worked, though. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping for. Like I said, one of the issues that you have when you're working in the VLE, right? Depending on the resources at Amazon and what's happening, that can take a different amount of time for each person using the VM. You have your own VM that you're using, but that VM is part of a pool of 5,000 VMs that we run. And so the amount of time that you get within your VM at Amazon will in fact vary based on time of day and day of week and that kind of thing. So that's great. I'm glad that that worked for you. That was my big concern of why you weren't getting that to complete with the .raw file, because it's so large.
Thank you very much. I'll just hang out and see what else I can learn.
Okay, good. I'm glad we solved that. That was kind of bugging me, because it was like I always get concerned when something in the BLE doesn't work for you guys, and I'm glad to hear it did work. So cool. Any other questions today from anybody else on the call? Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Hey, Professor. Quick question on, well, maybe not a quick question, on the assignment here for 473 for the sniffer. I'm reading through the chapter and I'm understanding a lot of it, but not everything. One of my main questions is, do you want us to do it pretty much like they have it in the book? Or can we kind of reach outside and Google around, use Google Foo to kind of figure this out?
Yeah, sure. The only exception to that is I want to make sure that you're using the core Python libraries to do this. So for example, I don't want you to go out and use Scapy, which is a third-party library that you'd have to install in order to do it. So the purpose of that is I want to make sure that you come away with a good understanding of how to use the core libraries within Python that do this for you, and that can do this. And the reason we do that is that whenever we're building applications in Python, we'd like to use the core standard library if we can. In certain cases, we have to reach out and go beyond the standard library to solve a problem. But the issue with that is that incompatibility. So if you're using a third-party library, we want to make sure that that third-party library would work across platforms. So should we work on Windows, Linux, Mac, Raspberry Pi, whatever, from that perspective. So by using the standard library to do these things, that we have a good confidence that they're going to work across. So that's my only caveat, is that yes, actually you can do research beyond the book to figure out how to do this. The other thing I would say, Tom, is that take this step by step in the book. So take the scripts in the book and use them one at a time and kind of really get a solid foundational understanding of each one of the scripts that are there that relate to the sniffer, and you know, go from that perspective, so that you kind of walk through that in a step-by-step process instead of trying to get to the end. I'm not suggesting you're doing that, but I'm just saying that part of the exercise is to actually practice with several of the scripts that are provided within the book. That makes sense?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you, sir. I think I was reading it a little bit late last night, so I think I'll go through it again today.
No problem. There's a lot there. I mean, that's why this is going to take a little while. And I think I did extend the assignment a little bit, so it's not due till Wednesday. And you can bring more questions certainly on Monday at the office hour, and we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. As people have more specific questions related to something, let's say that's not working or whatever, bring those to the office hour on Monday, and we'll try to address those individual issues. Anybody else this morning? Yeah, Vincent, it looked like you opened your mic, I think. Maybe not.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Okay.
Vincent, how are you?
Tired.
Okay, good. It's early out in Arizona, right? Is that where you are?
Yeah, it's barely 8:15.
Got it.
So not really much. I mean, question I was going to ask was already asked by Google and using the book and all that stuff. I think I've compiled a decent program. One of my problems is though, like, I'm not sure how similar it's going to wind up being to what you ran, and I'm a little concerned that might get me in some hot water.
Yeah, no, that's not going to be a problem. My solution is going to be different. I should have mentioned that the other day. I'm glad you brought that up. My solution is going to be a little bit different than what you're going to run from the book. And that's okay, because I want to show you some other things. You know, as you know, most of my solutions go beyond what the minimum was. So that's true here. I'm going to show you a bunch of other things on Wednesday when I go through my solution. So don't worry about matching it exactly. I did have one really good question about one of the students came back and had a really nice solution to the problem, but some of the columns weren't lining up. And I just made the suggestion that, you know, the columns of data that you're getting, you could always put in a pretty table. And the advantage of that is that then you can sort, you know, by a particular column, you know, that kind of stuff to be able to display stuff. So as you get data back that, you know, are going to be in, let's say, a column, you know, whether it was the connection, or whether it was the type, or whether it was, you know, the time, you know, that kind of thing that you're doing, you know, think about how you might create a pretty table that would have all of those columns. And then whenever you get a new observation, you could put it into the pretty table. And then you have options later to do other things with it, like not only sorting it, but then you could store it as a CSV or a JSON file or that kind of stuff. Just not required for the assignment, but just kind of one of the long-term objectives of using pretty table. It allows you to store the data that results from your observations into a table, and that, you know, is visible. And the longer term answer to that particular question, and I know this is not exactly what you asked, but one of the reasons that we do that is that in the next class that I teach in 474, which is the machine learning with Python class, we do a lot of tableization of data, typically using pandas and a data frame. And those relate very nicely to pretty tables and how we look at the data before we actually try to train a machine learning engine with the result, which is something that we do with the kind of data that you're sniffing and collecting this week. So long answer to your simple question. No, it doesn't have to match my output. That was just a kind of a just kind of giving you a view of what I was looking for, but my output's going to be different than yours.
Duly noted.
Okay, anybody else? Well, great. An easy session this morning, Ben. Good questions. I'm glad we covered some important things. And as you guys know, I do this every Saturday. So as you think of questions during the week, don't wait till the last minute, you know, send them out to me or to Elizabeth or both of us, or post them to the discussion thread. If you're working with one of the other professors, either Professor Covington or Professor Dalal, you know, in the other classes, you're obviously welcome here. And make sure that you send me again a message or a message to your professor, so it bubbles to me or to Elizabeth, so that we can make sure that we address them during this session. So as the weeks go on, you know, questions will become, let's say, a little harder. And so think about trying to get us those questions ahead of time, so that if I need to create a simple script to kind of go over in general the issue that you're dealing with, I have time to do that on Friday before we actually jump into the session on Saturday morning. So just keep that in mind. Either post it to the discussion within your class, or or send me and or Elizabeth a message, and we can then make sure that we address them. Okay. Well, I will give you the rest of your Saturday back. I will post this recording. I know it was short, but there were a couple of good questions that came up. I will post this once it actually processes, and you can review it if you want to. And have a great rest of your Saturday and weekend. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.